The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to the Box Score Breakdown Show, a Hoop Ball presentation. This episode is brought to you by Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company. Get some delicious coffee from Hawaii. Taste the Kona difference. Head over to hawaiianisles.com or Amazon and get some coffee. My name is Adrian Benjamins. I am joined as per usual every Sunday night by Captain Curt Beach. Curt, how are you, brother?
Adrian, I am living the dream, good man. I am excited to be here and talking with you and giving our listeners as much guidance and help as we can.
Man, Curt, you have quickly become one of my favorite co-hosts. I look forward to this Sunday to chat with you, man. And we got a pretty good slate of games to talk about. I think there's some interesting storylines in some of these games. And, you know, you and I were talking before we hit record on this, and it's somewhat quiet as far as news goes. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. And maybe like on a normal year, this is probably par for the course, but this year has gotten off to such a crazy start with so many long-term injuries, the 225-game suspensions, I guess actually 3 if you factor in, I think it's Wilson Chandler, but nobody owns him. But anyway, compared to that like tempo that we've been used to, it definitely, I would say, has been a quieter weekend.
Yeah, but you know what? You are right. I feel like every year I feel this way that, oh my gosh, this is the worst season ever for injuries. And then I remember, I think I said that last year. So,
yes.
But man, it just feels crazy. Like every single week somebody's going down. And how bad is it on your teams? Do you have any teams where you're just decimated, or have you been pretty good or lucky in avoiding all the injuries?
Brother, I do not know how this is possible. Maybe I targeted kind of same pockets of guys in each draft. I'm in 7 leagues, and I feel like I'm tiptoeing through a minefield. And there's nothing. No matter how much you research, no matter how much you watch, you can't prepare for these freak injuries, for these suspensions. No matter how quote unquote safe your team is, you just can't prepare for it. And somehow, in like all 7 of my leagues, I have some injuries, but luckily they're in leagues where I have an IR. You know, I have a couple of Bakas, I have a Lowry, I have some Ingrams. But other than that, knock on wood, I haven't gotten bitten by that crazy injury bug of the 4 to 6. Oh, actually, let me back up a step. I do have Marvin Bagley in 2 leagues, but it almost hasn't even affected me because it was, 1 game in, so I threw him on an IR and kind of forgot about it. But other than that, like, I've somehow managed to avoid these injuries. Watch tomorrow, 3 or 4 of my guys are going to go down with long-term injuries. A big one that would kill me is Devin Booker. I feel like I have Devin Booker on every team.
Nice.
Adrian, how are your teams doing, man?
Dude, in the Hoop Ball Staff League, I am getting killed. I got Karis LeVert, I got De'Aaron Fox, I got Kevin Huerter, and then on top of that, I got a bunch of guys that are just... Miles Bridges might be my biggest miss of the season, and I drafted him everywhere thinking he was going to be a stud this year. He's just been atrocious, and so Curt, I'm getting my butt kicked in the Hoop Ball Staff League, and I'm in this league with, you guys know the Hoop Ball Staff is one of the best in the industry, just some absolute killers in this league. Ethan Noroff, Eric Ong. So I'm just getting my butt handed to me in this league. And then in my home league, which is one that I probably care about the most, I got Karis LeVert in that league as well. So it's not great, but I've seen teams that have like 4 or 5 studs that are like down for multiple weeks. So I can't complain too bad because I think pretty much everybody is dealing with something. So
Yo, Adrian, let me hit you up in the Hoopball Staff League. Let me get this right. You are Walter Frazier's suits, correct?
no. I'm just Team Benjamins. Are you in division? What division are you in? I think there's one, two, and three.
Okay, I'm in year two.
Okay, hang on. Oh, my team name's just called Adrian's team, but hang on. I'm gonna pull this up as we're
Dude,
speaking. Um,
if that is true, that is crazy because either last week or the week before we talked about Paul Millsap and you mentioned how you went out and grabbed him in the
yeah,
Hoopball Staff League.
I grabbed him
And
in that league.
in
Yep.
in the division I'm in, he was picked up at that same time you were saying that.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
because of that, I pegged you as this guy in the league who's number two.
I
But
wish that was me, man. But yeah, dude, I'm just getting killed in this league. Sorio Dishak is in here. Hank Aaron, Riaz Danani, Ethan Noroff I mentioned before. I think Eric Ong is in here somewhere. I'm just getting killed, man. Like I think right now in my matchup, I'm losing 1-8 in my matchup right now. It's just
uh,
it's just so ugly. And I don't know, man. Maybe like I'm already kind of counting myself out for the playoffs, which it's still
don't do
early.
it, man. Don't do
But
it.
I'm still hoping that my team can get strong for like to at least win some games later in the year, so I can at least be respectable. But let me see. I got Anthony Davis, so of course that's not bad. Shea Gillis-Alexander, um, Jaron Jackson Jr. He's finally starting to come around. I picked up
Coming on.
Rashawn Holmes off the wire, but other than that, man, I got a lot of guys like Bryn Forbes at the end of my roster and Norman Powell. It's kind of ugly, dude. It's kind of ugly. Anyways, and
Adrian, let me ask you this. I know we're going on a bit of a tangent here, but do you have any of these teams like I do, where you're just looking at them on paper and you have minimal to no injuries, and you're thinking, this is a good team. I
yeah.
drafted really well here. I made some good pickups, yet somehow you're in the bottom quarter of the 12 or 14, 16 team standings. I'm looking, I have a couple teams like that, and I'm looking at them. So for this one example, I have IT, I have Bam, I have Oubre, Embiid, Porzingis, Conley, Devin Booker, Mitchell Robinson,
Wow.
Oladipo, Serge Ibaka. I'm like, this looks like it should be a good team, but it is just getting just wiped out every week in, every week out. Do you have any advice to our listeners if they're sitting at looking at a team that they think's a pretty solid team? They have a bunch of the guys that we, the hoop ballers, have hyped up, or any of the competitor sites that have hyped up. Do you have any advice for them on what to do when they're thinking, I have this good looking team, but I'm in the bottom of the standings. Do I blow it up? Do you have any advice for these guys?
Well, let me ask you, Kurt. Is that team you're talking about? Is it a roto league or is it
It's
head-to-head league?
I should have clarified. It is a head to head league.
Well, okay, so my advice in a head to head league is just don't freak out because things could turn for you in a positive way really quickly. And what I mean by that, that team you mentioned, you got a couple guys like Serge Ibaka. I think there were a couple guys that aren't playing right now. Let's say those guys come back soon. And then let's say you also got a couple of guys like I do who are underperforming. And let's say they all of a sudden start rolling. Let's say you make one or two nice pickups off the wire. Your team can all of a sudden become a powerhouse. So my advice is just stick with it, keep grinding, and you never know when things are going to turn around for you. Now, you mentioned I have that team in my home league. I'm like 10th place out of 13 teams, and I love my team. I mean, Kurt, I got Trae Young, Bradley Beal, John Morant, Bam
Oh wow.
Adebayo, Thomas Bryant, Fred Van Vliet that I drafted late. I picked up Daniel House, who I love, although he's been out
Man.
recently. I picked up Rashawn Holmes off of the wire. I mean, I got Karis LeVert on IR. I love this team. Now, right now,
Yep.
one of the reasons why I'm doing so bad, all these other teams in this league have played more games than me. So
Yes.
there's a games cap. So that's another thing, you guys. If you're in a roto league and you're down in the standings, go to your games played. If all these other teams have played way more games than you got to take a look at that, because either they are just way ahead in games, or they're going to finish the season before you because they're going to hit that game limit, and then they're going to be done, and you're still going to have games to play, and you're going to catch up. So I'm not freaking out. I know on paper this team's pretty good, and that when I start catching up in games, I think I'm going to shoot up the standings. So, you just got to take a look at the big picture. We've mentioned this numerous times. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And week to week leagues, one of the things I love about those head to head, week to week leagues, you just shake it off if you get a bad loss, and you look at next week and you're like, all right, man, like, can I dump these guys that aren't any good, make some good pickups on the wire? And so it like in those head to head leagues, it always feels like your fortune can change very quickly. I don't know. What do you think about that, Curt?
Adrian, you are exactly right. And I love the point you made about games played, whether you're in Roto with your games cap or you're in head to head. You have to look at that. Like that team you just mentioned, that sounds like an amazing team. And if any of our listeners had a similar team, I would say do not do anything crazy. That is a great team. It'll come around. But I don't know if you've noticed this like I have, at least in head to head. I'm more of a head to head guy than Roto. But I have noticed a lot this year, which is kind of strange because the NBA took extra measures to spread out the games and make it so there were fewer, 5 games in a week or 3 games in 5 nights kind of thing to kind of spread the season out and limit load management. But I have had a lot of matchups where my team versus the other team, say in a perfect scenario, we're perfectly healthy. My team plays 30 games and the opponent has 45. 45.
Wow.
That's a third more games. Like, there is no way I'm winning any of that matchup besides maybe percentages and turnovers. And so I've noticed this a lot. So keep that in mind. If you're in a situation like I am in a couple leagues where you're looking at your team, your team's got potential. It looks like a pretty good team on paper, but you're just kind of getting wiped out each week. Pay attention to the games played. That is very key. That's a great point, Adrian.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right, man. When you're not playing as many games as your opponent by that much, it's really tough to get a victory. So yeah, that's rough. And Curt, I've never seen a season where so many guys are on load management, which is really surprising because, as you said, they made the season a little longer so that there's less back to backs, there's less 5 game weeks, and so it is really surprising to see all these guys on load management plan. So I don't know, man. It's just something we're gonna have to really get used to, and maybe we might have to take that into account on draft day, like which guys are gonna get that load management treatment. I don't know.
And it's so crazy too, though. Like, you have the usual suspects, Kawhi, probably PG, some of the superstars, but then we're seeing things come out of nowhere like Ja Morant and Brandon Clark. What are they, 18, 19, 20?
Yeah.
It's so crazy right now.
It is ridiculous, for sure. Yeah, like young kids these guys should be able to run all day long. It is really ridiculous to see them get this, yeah, for sure. Anyways, Curt, I think let's get to these box scores. Otherwise, we're going to probably be in for another 2-hour show like last week. Let's jump right into this, man. Let's go over to, I think the first game of the day was the 76ers against the Cavaliers. Not really surprised the Sixers getting the victory, 114 over the Cavs. They had 95. I'm going to jump in on the Philly side first. I'm going to start with Tobias Harris, who, after a somewhat shaky start, has really been coming around. And tonight was fantastic. Very efficient, 12 of 14 from the field for 27 points, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 4 assists, 5 boards. Perfect 2 of 2 from the line. Gave you a 3. It's a nice game from him. Al Horford with 11 points. Love the defensive stats. The 2 steals, 2 blocks, 7 assists is nice from your center. 6 boards, 1 3 on 4 of 6 shooting. Josh Richardson, this one was disappointing. He only shot 2 of 12 for 8 points, 1 block, 4 rebounds, 2 threes, but hang in there with J. Rich. Hopefully he gets better as the season goes on. Ben Simmons with 10 points, 11 assists, 2 blocks, 1 steal is nice, 4 rebounds, and on 5 of 8 shooting. Joel Embiid, this one feels like a letdown from him. 14 points, but did have a steal, a block, 2 assists, 4 rebounds on 6 of 13 shooting, 2 at 2 from the line. Off the bench, nobody really that I trust, although Korkmaz had 13 points in 18 minutes. Ennis had 14 points, 4 rebounds, 3 threes in 16 minutes, but I don't think you would trust any of these guys in standard leagues. Curt, what are your thoughts on the 76ers?
Adrian, you nailed it. Like, nothing really moves the needle here. And also, with some of these guys having lower minutes, this game was a bloodbath. Philadelphia was up by 30 points in the second quarter. So it ends up looking closer than it actually was. Philadelphia massacred Cleveland in this game. And I could be wrong, but just listening to the announcers, I think Cleveland came to Philly in the last week, and it was really close, and Philadelphia was lucky to come away with the win, so they were ready to roll tonight. Embiid, a lot of these starters' numbers are down a little bit besides Tobias. So Embiid, I think he's a little bit of a buy low right now. He hasn't had those monster games where he goes off for like 30 and 20 or 40 and something. So I think he's a bit of a buy low. But like you said, on the bench, even in deep leagues, there's not much to see here. Korkmaz is probably the closest thing to relevancy here. And that's probably more of a 14, 16 teamer, or if Philly has a 4-game week and you're trying to stream threes, I can see that. I tried to do that in a past week. And Tybal, again, this guy that people are really hyping for the defensive stats. I love it myself. But in these minutes, 15 to 20, it's just not enough, guys. No steals, no blocks. He's really on the outside looking in. He's not even a 14-teamer right now. Maybe 16, 20, or if you have room to stash, you could do that. But other than that, nothing really moves the needle here for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree. What happened on the Cleveland side of this game?
My good sir, let me tell you. Again, blowout. So all these guys, the minutes were capped for their starters with Osman at 28, Thompson at 28, Sexton at 28, and Garland and Love had 25. So just keep that in mind. All of their stats are going to be a little bit muted. They were down by 30. Kevin Love, I was watching this game at least the first half until I got completely bored out of my mind when they were down by 30. Kevin Love had what looked to be kind of a scary injury to his knee. He stayed down. They had to take a timeout. But he got up, kept playing. He seemed to be fine. But after the flight, if there's swelling or whatnot, something to check on tomorrow morning. He had 12 and 6 with 2 threes. Kind of a quiet Kevin Love night. But like I said, kind of quiet for all these guys. Osman, he's still starting, but not doing a whole lot. Tristan Thompson, kind of quieter by the standard that he set in the early season, but he still had 12 and 9 with 3 assists. That's great to see from Thompson. You don't see that often. And 4 defensive stats, a steal and 3 blocks. So if you got Thompson, if you picked him up, he's still probably in contention for one of the waiver wire pickups of the year. Keep holding. Colin Sexton did his kind of thing. 17 points, 4 rebounds, a steal, and an assist. Not a whole lot more. You know what you're getting with Sexton, scoring and not much else. Darius Garland is the only reason I watch this team. To be honest, I am really hoping to see this guy emerge. And so much hype coming into the season with him, even though he only played 5 games in college. Honestly, he is the only reason I watch this team, because I want to see if when I see those flashes, those good drives to the basket, those nice passes. It's going to be a bumpy ride with him. He's been just outside standard league value, I would say, probably 14, 16 teamer. Or if you have enough room where you can stash, if you're in a weekly league and you can just set him on your bench until, I don't know, January, February, I really do think there's going to be a time this season where you're going to want to have Garland on your team. But right now, he's on rosters, he's off rosters. And tonight, 4 of 13 for 11 points, 2 assists, 2 steals. So it's painful, but I'm really hopeful for him. Maybe I'm in the minority. Off the bench, let's see. We had Jordan Clarkson doing Jordan Clarkson-y things, 15 points, not much else. Ante Zizic, deep leaguers, you want to keep note of this. He had a good run to end the season last year where he was putting up about 8 points, 8 boards, and about a block or 2. This was his first game back. He had 6 points, 2 rebounds, and a block in 17 minutes. Not exciting, but some of you deep leaguers, 14, 16, 18, 20 teamers, you're looking for any advantage you can find, and Ante Zizic just might be that guy. I don't know. Let me also mention that Larry Nance sat out tonight, so they're a little full in the front court. So his minutes are probably going to be up and down, but deep leaguers, I would keep an eye on him. Adrian, what do you think about these Cavaliers?
Well, you pretty much covered everything. I was going to mention Larry Nance, but you touched on him there. It looks like a sprained left thumb. I think he's just being considered day-to-day, so hopefully we see him back soon. And then anytime you mention the word injury and with the name Kevin Love, I get a little bit scared due to his history of injury issues. But good sign that we saw him return to this game and keep playing. But I also would not be surprised if he misses the next game or so, just as a precaution. I think sometimes it feels like the Cavs just look for a reason to kind of shut down Kevin Love. So, I'm not expecting him to miss time, but could possibly maybe sit the next one if, let's say on the flight, whatever happens, let's say his knee swells or something like that. It's possible he could miss the next game. So keep an eye on that. And other than that, man, you pretty much nailed everything. Darius Garland, it's funny to hear you talk about how you're tuning in for Garland, because if I was able to watch the game, I couldn't watch it. I would also be looking for Garland because he was a guy that was very intriguing coming into this year. Somehow I ended up with him in like my 3 dynasty leagues I play in. I had to pick somewhere between 4 and 7, and in all 3 of my leagues he was available in that area, and so I drafted him in all 3 of my dynasty leagues. So he's someone I got a lot of stock in. I'm okay with his start. I know he missed a lot of time in college and didn't really have a summer. So, I was expecting a slow start for him. And from what I've seen, I think he's going to be okay for standard leagues, though. I love your take, Curt. I think in standard leagues, it's just he's going to be so up and down and inconsistent. But I also think it's possible at the second half of the season he could start to put it together. So if you have the luxury of being able to stash him and hang on to him, I would recommend it. And then I still feel pretty good about him in my dynasty leagues. I think, maybe it's not even this season. Maybe it's next season or the season after. I'm okay with waiting for him in those dynasty leagues. Curt, point guard position, the hardest position to play in the NBA. It takes guys. We very rarely see a guy just come in and just kill the point guard position right off the bat. Sometimes it takes a season or 2 for these guys to really get it. And I think for Garland, he might fall under that category.
I love it, Adrian. Where you got him in the dynasty leagues, that is amazing. Definitely hold on. Do not drop that guy, man. Mm-hmm. He's just that mystery box kind of guy. Like, you have to hold on, especially in a dynasty league. Great pick. I love it.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about him, he projects as a real prototypical point guard, meaning like in the vein of Chris Paul, like a guy that can pass. He's coming into the draft. One of the things is he was supposed to have a really nice 3-point stroke, and so I love that he kind of projects as that type of point guard. So we'll just keep an eye on him and let's see his progression.
And you're right, Adrian. I could be wrong on these numbers, but I think I looked up college stats, and I know college stats are deceiving, but when you have a rookie that you're looking at, like what else are you going to go on? And I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I think he hit 48% of his shots from downtown. So absolutely, you're right on that.
All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to the next game. I believe it is the Boston Celtics and the Sacramento Kings. The Celtics were really good, number one team in the East coming into this, and pretty surprising to see the Kings get a victory here, 100-99. Going to jump in on the Boston side of this game first. I'm going to start with Jaylen Brown, who I think is the biggest beneficiary of Gordon Hayward missing time. And I feel like ever since Hayward has gone out, we've seen Jaylen Brown's numbers spike. He had 18 points here tonight, 2 steals, 8 boards, 4 of 7 from downtown. That's pretty good. 7 of 16 from the field. Kemba Walker has been pretty good. This game was just okay, but 15 points, a steal, 9 assists, 1 rebound. He's going to be just fine. Little surprising to not see him get a 3 in 32 minutes of action, but he's really been coming around after a slow start. He's been pretty fantastic. Was a perfect 5 of 5 from the line as well. Jason Tatum with 14 points, 2 assists, 1 block, 6 rebounds, 1 3 on 6 of 13 shooting. He'll be just fine. Daniel Theis filling in for did Cantor play? Yeah, Cantor did play in this one, but still coming off the bench. So Theis getting the start, doubled with 14 points, 10 rebounds, no defensive stats, which is a little bummer from your center, but very efficient shooting on 5 of 6 from the field and 4 of 4 from the line. So if you did play him in some deep leagues, you must be pretty happy. Marcus Smart with 5 points, but did give you 9 assists and 5 boards with 1 3. 2 of 16 shooting's not great, but if you're playing him in a deep league, just hang tight. Off the bench, Enes Kanter still kind of working his way back. I think, only 19 minutes here tonight. I think we're going to see those minutes ramp up, but 10.7 rebounds for him. Robert Williams, man, I've moved on from him in some deep leagues. Only 7 minutes. I just with Cantor and Theis, it's just a 3-headed monster there. I just don't trust Robert Williams in any standard leagues. And, not too much else to talk about here off the bench. Curt, what do you think of the Celtics?
Man, the only thing, like you said, is basically the front court battle. And I was like, why is Theis starting all of these games? And some of it was due to necessity. But then Cantor's been back a few games. I think this was his 4th game back. And Theis looks decent. Like, he looks good out there. 14 and 10, no blocks, but he's been blocking a lot of shots this year. And like you said, Robert Williams is definitely super intriguing. Somebody compared him to this year's Mitchell Robinson, how he's kind of quiet, but he's a guy that could go out there and get your monster block lines. Only 7 minutes tonight, so that's definitely discouraging, and that puts him below the cut line for me personally in standard leagues. Cantor, man, I'm not sure. He had 25 minutes, he had 25 minutes for 13 and 9 2 games ago, but that was more out of necessity. I think Theis and the Time Lord were out that game. Ever since, he had 15 minutes. Tonight he had 18. And maybe they're bringing him along slowly. I don't think he's a cut candidate by any means because we know what he can do in limited minutes. He only needs 22 to 24 minutes to get you a double-double on elite percentages. He's not going to get you defensive stats or really anything else other than that double-double and elite percentages. But if I own Cantor, I'm definitely concerned. I somehow don't have him in any league. But I would still be holding on because he can get you that double-double, and that's not something that you can find on the waiver wire super easily, especially a center that can get high-efficiency free throws. So he's split in minutes, but like we said, he only needs 22 to 24 to be fantasy relevant. He's not a cut guy right now, but for me, if I own him, he's probably moving toward that line. Other than that, that's really the main thing I'm looking for when I'm watching the Celtics is that front court battle.
Nice. What happened on the Sacramento side of this game?
Sir, let me tell you. So the Foxless and Bagley-less Kings, somehow, I don't know how they did this. Like I watched the first half of the game, but they knocked off Boston, who was 10-1, so pretty crazy. And who would have thought, not only besides Buddy Hield, that makes sense, that he'd come in there for 35 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 steals, a block, 7 3-pointers, and 14 of 24 from the field. Amazing for Hield. He was backed up by Nemanja Bjelica for 12 and 14 with 4 assists and a block. Rashawn Holmes got into some early foul trouble. He picked up 2 real quick. He grabbed this third one when he re-entered the game. So he was definitely limited by foul trouble again. That's the biggest struggle for Holmes. If he can somehow avoid fouls, similar to a JJJ or a Mitchell Robinson, his line's going to be great. And even with the foul trouble today, he still managed 27 minutes for 9 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 blocks. Harrison Barnes had an okay line. Corey Joseph started, but he's not a standard league guy. He's probably not even a 14-team league guy. Let us see. Nemanja Bjelica. Man, I heard one of our benevolent overlords, Dan Vespris, describe Bjelica as a flat tire on wheels. And I got to be honest, that's what he looks like out there. You would not, if you were just watching this guy for a couple plays, you would not think that this is somebody that you want on your fantasy team. But he just does everything. Like, the announcers are saying his name constantly. Bjelica with the block. Bjelica with the board. Like, they're constantly saying his name. And, Bagley is out for, another couple weeks. But we saw Bjelica have a run like this last year. I think we talked about this before. So he's not exciting to own by any means. But he gives you very good value. And even if you just pick him up to ride him until Bagley comes back and see what happens, that's going to be 2 weeks of really good value. So I think that's somebody that you have to own. Off the bench, Harry Giles has been getting back in the swing of things. He was somebody last year that I was really intrigued by, but the minutes aren't there, so he's not really an ad in any format. Dwayne Dedmon is finally getting back to where he belongs in the minutes department with 7 points, 4 rebounds, and a block. If you haven't dropped him already, he is an obvious drop candidate. Yogi Ferrell, 17 minutes, nothing exciting, but he definitely looks like a good spark plug out there for the Kings. And then we have Bogdan Bogdanovic, 12 points, 10 assists, 2 steals, 2 triples. I'm kind of surprised that he doesn't start over Corey Joseph, but nonetheless, he'll probably do even better in the second unit. For the Kings, Adrian, that is all I have. What did I miss here? What's your take on these guys?
Man, you covered it all. Not too much more for me to add. I like Bogdanovic a lot. I think he could be the biggest winner from the Fox injury. The double-doubled here tonight with 12 points, 10 assists. He's looked pretty good ever since Fox has gone down. And, even though coming off the bench, seeing some nice minutes, 31 here tonight, he's a guy that I like a lot. And then I got Holmes in a bunch of leagues. So, even though the scoring wasn't there tonight, only 2-7 for the field for 9 points. Gotta love the boards and the 2 blocks. And I think he's just... I feel pretty good about him. Even when Bagley gets back, I think they're going to still... Holmes is going to still get some nice tick in the center spot and play next to Bagley. He's just been too good for them on the defensive end. Something that they're really lacking. And Dedmon is really his only competition for minutes in that center spot. And Dedmon, it's just not happening. So, really interesting team, the Kings. All right, let's keep going. Let's jump over to the Denver Nuggets and the Memphis Grizzlies. The Nuggets getting the victory 131 to the Grizzlies 114. I'm going to jump in on the Denver side first, and I got to start with Jamal Murray, who had a great game. 39 points, 3 steals, a block, 8 assists, 4 boards, 7 of 12 from deep, 14 of 24 from the field, a perfect 4 of 4 from the line. This is a great game from him. Curt, Jokic has been a little up and down, and tonight I'm going to say he was down. You know, 9 points, 8 assists is good, 5 boards, but only 1 3, only shot 4 of 7. It just seems like his usage was down in this one. Will Barton only 6 points, 3 assists, 5 rebounds for him, 1 3. Gary Harris, I dropped him in a bunch of leagues earlier. 8 points, 1 assist, 1 rebound on 4-7 shooting. Paul Millsap, I was able to pick up Millsap in that Hoop Ball Staff League. 23 points, 5 steals is fantastic. 1 assist, 3 rebounds, 2 threes on a very efficient 8 of 11 shooting from the field, 5 of 6 from the line. So pretty good game from him. Off the bench, they got some nice games. Hernan Gomez had 15 points, 2 assists, 3 boards, 4 threes on 5 of 6 shooting. Jeremy Grant doing what he does, 12 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 threes on 4 of 6 shooting. Morris, 8 points. I don't really trust him or really anyone else on this roster. Curt, what do you think of the Denver Nuggets?
Adrian, you're right. Like, off the bench, this team is so deep that you can't rely on anyone off the bench, even though they have, Monte Morris and Malik Beasley. They were some nice pickup guys last year. Even Hernan Gomez, I don't know if you remember that 2 or 3 week period where he was like one of the top pickups. It's not there for these guys off the bench. If you don't own a starter for the Nuggets, you probably don't want to own anyone. And even the starters, Will Barton and Gary Harris, were kind of quiet tonight. They were up by 25 at halftime, so I wouldn't read too much into their lines. Millsap, you gotta love that. If you picked him up, Adrian, like you did, man, he did that in only 20 minutes. He's old, sure. He's not gonna like blow the doors off anything, but he's worth owning. Jokic, we've had some questions about this guy in the Hoop Ball forums. Some guys are a little bummed they bought low on him. Yeah, like Dan says, he looks a little fat out there. He's kind of just plodding along, but he does this every year. The nice thing about Jokic is he's a potential first-round value type guy, and he always gives you this chance to buy low on him if you don't own him. So if you haven't already, the window is still open, guys. Do it. I did it in a league. I sold, I think it was Hassan Whiteside and Marcus Morris, who I think is overperforming. I sold those two and got Jokic, and I am just ecstatic about that because I can always just use that empty roster space to stream. But, yeah, that window is still open. He's a potential top 15 kind of guy, for top first-round upside. That's the biggest takeaway for me. If you don't own him, try to buy him. Adrian, would you agree on that? What do you think about Jokic?
I absolutely agree with that. And, he had a big game just a few days ago, and I thought that buy low window was closing. But today, I think it kind of reopens that door because, I know in my home league, I got a buddy who drafted him early, and he was pretty upset about his start. So I feel like you can kind of take advantage of those people who are just really disappointed and who, because I do think Jokic is going to get better as the season goes around. As you mentioned, Curt, it doesn't look like he's in great shape. I think his shape, his conditioning, his physical status will improve as the season goes on, and I feel pretty confident we're going to see that Jokic that we're used to. So, yeah, if you can buy low on him, go for it, man. And I feel like you may be able to get him for a guy who's second round guy. I feel like you could probably float a guy that you drafted in the second or early third who's playing really good. And if that owner of Jokic is really upset and just frustrated, you can go take advantage of that. So I love that take. Curt.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, I got him with Whiteside and a guy I picked up off the waiver wire.
Wow.
Try Whiteside, try Valanciunas, try Steven Adams and somebody else. You never know. Take a shot, and nobody wants to see their first round pick putting up 9 points. I know points is overvalued, but for some reason everyone just expects their first round value or their first round pick's going to score 30 a game. So to see him put up 9 points a game, you have to know that Jokic owners are frustrated.
Yeah.
Adrian.
In my home league, my buddy who has Jokic, he drafted a lot of centers early and missed out on point guards. So he's desperate for a point guard, and he's got a bunch of injuries. So I feel like if I offered him a 2-for-1, for example, I got Fred VanVleet, and I'm loaded with guards. What if I float VanVleet, who's been playing really well, plus a second guy, like a mid-round guy? Maybe I can get Jokic for that, because I know that this guy needs a little depth because he's got 3 guys on injured who are injured, and he's desperate for a point guard. So you guys got to look at that team who has Jokic. Think of what their needs are. Try to really take advantage of that.
Adrian, that is an amazing take. Don't just think of it as, I need Jokic, here's a deal I would send out. Look at that guy's team.
Yeah.
Where is he in the rankings? Is he in the bottom of the rankings? Does he have multiple injury guys where he's ready to panic? Definitely keep all these things in mind. All these things come into play when you're sending out these buy low offers.
Yeah, definitely. What went down on the Grizzlies side of this game?
Adrian, let me hit you with it. So these guys were all very low in the minutes count. So again, if you own one of these guys and they didn't perform up to snuff for you, probably just throw it away. I mean, Jay Crowder led the team with 27 minutes. He went for 8 and 5 with 3 assists, a steal, and a block, and 2 threes. He's been serviceable. He can be an end of your bench kind of guy in 12 teamers. Definitely needs to be owned in 14 teams or deeper. Jaren Jackson started off with a slow season. He was an amazing buy low candidate. I tried wherever I could. I just wasn't able to reel him in. But he had 22 points, 5 rebounds, no assists, steals, or blocks, but 5 made 3-pointers. So that's nice for JJJ. And then the also thing you want to look at here with JJJ, just kind of like Mitchell Robinson, is the foul situation. Only 2 fouls. So he's improving in that area. That's the biggest limiting factor for his value. Let me see. Jonas Valanciunas, 22 minutes. Again, low minutes for everyone. 16 and 10 with 2 threes. John Morant, 13 points with 2 rebounds, 6 assists, and a 3. Dylan Brooks. This guy, I tell you what. I don't know why this always happens to me. I pick up these hot guys that have had a good run, a good pedigree, Dylan Brooks, Maxi Kleber, and then they go for, like Maxi Kleber did the other night, 4 rebounds and nothing else, or Dylan Brooks this night when I picked him up, 4 points and assist and nothing else. Yeah, it was a blowout, but that's just kind of like par for the course for me. Like I'll pick somebody up after they've been having a great run, maybe 5-10 game sample size, and then they'll do something like this. If you have Dylan Brooks, I would still hold on. I think, I could be wrong, I think he was number 77 on a totals value for 9-cat, so he's definitely still worth owning. Consider the blowout factor. Like I said, if you own any of these Grizzlies, don't overthink this too much. Brandon Clark off the bench, a perfect 8 of 8 from the field for 19 points, 5 rebounds, an assist, and 2 threes. This guy, he gets limited minutes, but somehow, tell me if I'm wrong, I think he's in the top 60 in most 9-cat leagues by averages and totals, which is crazy in the amount of minutes he's been getting. So if JJJ or Valanciunas or Crowder ever go down and he gets more minutes in the high 20s even, he's a per-minute monster. So I've seen him dropped in a couple places. You have to pick this guy up if he got dropped.
Yeah,
Other than that,
I love that take on Brandon Clark, I think he looks spectacular. It's if under different circumstances, like he would be a really great fantasy option, as you said, with Valanciunas ahead of him and JJJ and Crowder. He's going to have nights like tonight, especially on a blowout, on a night where they get blown out. But as you said, I feel like later in the season when the Grizzlies are completely out of it, they're in full tank mode and whatnot, I feel like Brandon Clark is just going to be like an automatic good fantasy line every night. But
Yeah.
JJJ, I want to mention real quick, the defensive stats weren't there tonight, which is a major bummer because we know he's capable of providing elite defensive stats. But I gotta say, I'm really happy his offense is coming around. The fact that he shot 5 of 7 from downtown, a perfect 5 of 6 from the line, took 12 shots, so which is the most out of anyone on this team. So I'm just really happy that his offense is coming around, and I think his defensive stats will be there on most nights. So even though he didn't have any steals or blocks, he'll be just fine. And Curt, tonight, I got John Morant in my home league. Even though it was an okay game, he only played 21 minutes. Brooks, who you have, I think most nights he's going to be much better because a lot of these guys were victim of the blowout factor. Brooks only getting 18 minutes, so I would hang tight with Brooks. And of course, even in 21 minutes, I'm okay with this game from Ja.
Definitely agree.
All right, let's go to the next game up, the Washington Wizards and the Orlando Magic. The Magic getting the victory 125-121. I guess that's not too big of a surprise. The Wizards, it's been a little ugly for them so far this season. I'm going to start over on the Washington side, and I'm going to start with Bradley Beal. I've got him in a few leagues this year, and after somewhat of a shaky start, man, he is really coming around. I think he had two 44-point games earlier in the week, so the scoring is really coming around. 34 points here tonight, 5 of 10 from downtown, 12 of 26 from the field, was 5 of 6 from the line. He also gave you 8 assists, 6 rebounds, and a steal, so he's been good. Thomas Bryant with 13 points. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Thomas. Thomas Bryant, 14 points, 4 assists, 6 rebounds, 1 block on 6 of 10 shooting, 1 3, 1 of 1 from the line. He should be just fine. Isaiah Thomas, 13 points, 2 steals, 5 assists. I'm really ecstatic that he's starting and getting close to 30 minutes a game, or 30 minutes. I think if you picked up Isaiah Thomas or you drafted Isaiah Thomas, just the fact that at this point of the season he's already in such a good role here, I think that's a win. So hang tight with IT. And probably the two disappointing guys is Roy Hachimura, 6 points, 2 assists, 4 rebounds in just 28 minutes. And Troy Brown, a guy who I picked up in a bunch of deeper leagues, thinking that he could emerge as a solid option. But one of the really bummer parts about Troy Brown is just the usage. In 24 minutes, he only took 5 shots and made 1 for 2 points, 2 assists, 7 boards. So in standard leagues, I'm thinking of, I think I only own him in one standard league. I'm thinking of already dropping him and moving on. And in my deeper leagues, I'm going to hang tight with Troy Brown and see if he can come around soon. They got some nice games off the bench. Bertans with 15 points and 8 boards, 5 threes from Bertans. In fact, every shot he took in this game was from 3-point range. CJ Miles got hot, 21 points, 6 of 7 from downtown from him. In standard leagues, I don't really trust Miles. I think in 20 minutes, he could give you a game like he gave you tonight, but could also give you a very low-end line. So his floor is very low. Mo Wagner, who went off in a 30-point outing the other night, just got 20 minutes here tonight for 12 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds. So that's why in standard leagues, don't really trust Mo Wagner. But if you picked him up in deep leagues, maybe just keep him on your roster and see how he looks in the next one. Not too much else to talk about. Curt, what do you think of the Wizards?
I think, like you said, Adrian, if you grab Troy Brown Jr., he's not necessarily a must-hold with that low usage. Davis Bertans, this guy gets mixed reviews, but like you said, all of his shots were from three-point land. If he's going to take 11 threes and make even a third or half of them, he's worth owning. And he's shown that he can do more than that with a 10-rebound game recently, an 8-rebound game tonight, an assist, 2 steals. And he's still really young on a terrible team. He's definitely worth owning in standard leagues. CJ Miles, do not fall for that trap. Do not do it. Mo Wagner, man, I love this guy when he played for Michigan. He did everything. But the Lakers never really gave him a shot. We saw him blow up the other night. I think you can own him in standard leagues, but I wouldn't cut anyone reliable. If you have somebody at the end of your roster who you're just itching to cut, I think he's worth a flyer in standard leagues. 14, 16 teamers, I think you definitely need to grab him. But his minutes are kind of low, and he does struggle with foul trouble. We saw that throughout the season. He's getting 4, 5, 6 fouls a game, sometimes in only 15 minutes. So fouls are a serious issue for him at this level. But I think he's worth owning in a lot of leagues. Like I said, mainly if you have somebody to cut. The main thing, with the starters, Bradley Beal is great. You know he's going to be doing well. He's had a rough time from the field so far, but that's coming back. I think, Adrian, correct me if I'm wrong. So Beal played 82 games in the last season and the season before that, and he's close to 37 minutes a game. Now, don't get me wrong. I love him if I have him. And in a roto league, you don't have to really worry about this as much. But in a head-to-head league, would you be at all concerned about owning Beal when it comes to the fantasy playoffs, even though he says he wants to be a leader and he wants to be out there playing? Washington doesn't have anything to play for. You know they're going to be terrible. Would you be trying to trade Beal at all before it came to those fantasy playoffs?
Yeah, I'm okay with that mindset of trying to move Beal before your fantasy playoffs. Luckily, the spots that I have Beal are only roto leagues, so I think I'm going to hang tight with him. But I love that take only because, as you said, the Wizards look awful, and you worry at some point, could Beal get traded? Could he get shut down? Now, the one thing I am encouraged at on Curt is supposedly last season the Wizards came to Beal wanting to shut him down, and Beal told them he does not want to be shut down. He wants to play. So that is very encouraging that if it's up to Beal, he wants to be out there if he's healthy. So I love that he has that mindset. That makes me feel a little good that, even if the Wizards are awful and we expect them to be bad for this whole season, Beal hopefully will still be out there towards the end of the year. But definitely, man, this is a guy who's got first round upside. So you likely could get quite a bit for Bradley Beal. And if you want to move him, I definitely have no problem with that. That's a good take.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's see. Where are we? Curt, what happened on the Orlando Magic side of this game?
Adrian, let me tell you. So Jonathan Isaac, who has been a complete monster, absolute steal in almost any draft, he's out tonight with an ankle injury, which is a little bit concerning because it's the one that's cost him quite a bit of time. That being said, if you own him, don't panic. Just ride this storm. If you don't own him, I would be shooting buy low offers because if the owner of JI knows and is aware that this cost him time in the past, they might be freaking out a little bit. So you might be able to get him on the cheap, and if you can do that, I would. It doesn't matter to me if he's going to miss 5 games, maybe 10 games. It doesn't matter because the defensive stats he's been putting up, he's been a first rounder. Try to steal this guy. Anyway, in his absence, Al Farouk, the Chief Aminu, started for 6-6 with 2 assists. Nothing to see here. He's not a standard league guy, and he's also on a shelf life. Aaron Gordon had 13-9 with 2 assists and a 3. He played 37 minutes, which is good, but he wasn't great from the field, going 5 of 16. He's he's deceiving because he seems like he should be a good player, but he's just not the best fit for most fantasy leagues. Nikola Vucevic went big tonight for 30 and 17 with 16 assists, a block, and 3 threes. Great from the field and perfect from the stripe. He had a bit of a buy low window earlier on. That window is pretty much closed shut. Evan Fournier has been having a low-key, very nice season. 25 points, 9 assists, 5 triples. Then we have Markelle Fultz, who started again. Only 26 minutes, but had 19 points, which I believe is a career high. 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal, 2 threes. And he was 8 of 10 from the field with 4 turnovers. So a pretty good game for Markelle Fultz. And just from an NBA standpoint, most people are rooting for Fultz to turn it around and really get his game going. Like it's unfortunate when you see somebody who was so good in college come back and get the yips and just really struggle. So from an NBA fan perspective, you're really rooting for him to turn it around, and maybe this is the season that he does it. I think the Magic got a great deal when they bought him. From a fantasy perspective, I'm not super stoked on him. I think in 14-team leagues or deeper, you probably need to own him. But in standard leagues, he's really, for me, in the same boat as Darius Garland, where you want to see them succeed, but you're going to have to be patient. Off the bench, DJ Augustine still played 24 minutes for 13 and 3 with 3 assists, 3 triples. Other than that, the only person worth mentioning is Terrence Ross, and he is definitely worth mentioning. He played 25 minutes for 15 points, 1 3, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals. So he's had a bumpy ride to start the season. He split some time with Aminu early on, so maybe these minutes come down a little bit when J.I. comes back and Aminu and Ross are fighting for some minutes. But this is a guy we've known last year averaged 15 points and close to 3 triples. He is one of the elite 3-point specialists. Even though he only made 1 tonight, he shot 7. I think you can pick him up in a lot of places. I'm seeing him picked up pretty much everywhere because this is about his 3rd game in a row. If you have room to add him, I definitely would in any league. And if it doesn't pan out, you can always drop him. But we know what he's capable of. So definitely something to keep an eye on. And if you need a 3-point specialist, pick him up right now. Adrian, what do you got?
Interesting thing, Curt. I drafted Fultz in my home league, which is a 13-team roto league. We got deep rosters. I took him with my last round pick. I ended up dropping him earlier this week because I'm loaded at guard, and he just wasn't playing well. And after tonight, I was slightly regretful that I cut him and just tossed him on the wire. Somebody picked him up because he looked good here tonight. But also, if you take away the scoring, was really low in all these other areas. So let's say his shot wasn't falling tonight. It wouldn't be a great night. So, I'm okay now that I take a look at this box score moving on from Fultz. And I agree with your take. In standard leagues, probably still not worth owning. As you mentioned, how he's kind of in that same Garland, like you put him kind of in that same boat as Darius Garland. So I like your take on Fultz. Other than that, man, Jonathan Isaac, really interesting thing, Curt. Supposedly he got this ankle injury from a uniform unveiling. So it was like he was supposed to model this uniform for some promo type of a thing and ended up twisting his ankle at the thing. So really strange that he's got this injury from non-game practice related stuff. So keep an eye on Jonathan Isaac. I love your take on trying to buy low because, man, this guy was putting up like early round value before he went down. Has been pretty fantastic on the season. So I love your take on Jonathan Isaac.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's jump over to the second to last game of the evening. Not too much of a surprise, I guess, man. The Warriors have been bad. Warriors and Pelicans. Pelicans getting the victory 108 to 100. I'm going to look on the Warriors, who are a very interesting team to look at due to all the injuries, due to this team is 2-12, so likely they're going into the tank. Really interesting that this team could get like the number one pick in the draft, and next year they could get Curry, Klay Thompson, healthy Draymond, all back with like a rookie stud. So really interesting team. But for fantasy purposes, Pascal, 30 points with 2 assists, 7 rebounds. I think this guy has to be owned with all the injuries that the Warriors have. Draymond Green, does not look that engaged. Make sure Pascal's not sitting on your wire. 30 points, 2 assists, 7 boards, 2 threes. He was 8 of 10 from the line, 10 of 17 from the field. Let's see. Robinson with 14 points, 2 assists, 6 rebounds, 1 3. I've seen him scooped up in quite a bit of leagues, Glenn Robinson. 6 of 13 from the field. He is starting and seeing a lot of minutes. Now, he is prone to the low-end line, but I think tonight is the reason why he's got to be owned in a lot of leagues. Unless you're like in a shallow 10-team league, I think that's in your roster is pretty stacked. I think that's maybe the only way you wouldn't even look at Glenn Robinson. But I know I'm in a lot of 14-team and deeper leagues, and Glenn Robinson's already been scooped up everywhere. Draymond Green didn't really have it going in this one. 7 points. Now, I do love the defensive stats. 2 steals, a block, 4 assists, 6 rebounds. So even though the scoring wasn't there, still helped you out in a lot of these categories. Curt, we mentioned Alec Burks, I think, at the beginning of the show, or maybe that's when we were talking actually before the show started. But Alec Burks, has been picked up in a lot of leagues. Now, the shot wasn't falling tonight, was only 2 of 13 for the field for 7 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds. I understand if you want to pick him up and, if you want to grab him in some leagues, only because he is seeing some good minutes. We have seen him have some nice games earlier in the week, earlier in the season. So if you want to pick up Burks, if you have Burks, stick with him. But tonight is like one of those reasons why I'm not mega high on Alec Burks. Willie Cauley-Stein, I think this guy needs to be owned in a lot of leagues only because of he's starting, he's going to see good minutes, and I think he can give you a double-double points and boards. Now, tonight, didn't really have it going, only 9 points with 4 rebounds, but did give you some defensive stats, 3 steals, a block, 1 assist. So I think he's got to be owned. Curt, the guy I'm interested in off the bench, I already picked him up in some deep leagues. Kai Bowman, 19 points off the bench, 1 steal, 4 assists, 2 rebounds, 3 threes. Even though he came off the bench, played 28 minutes, and the usage is there. 16 shots for him, 8 of 16 from the field. I saw in an interview with Steve Kerr, I don't know if this was after the game or before the game, Kerr mentioned that Bowman could be getting the start at point guard with D'Angelo Russell likely to miss the next couple weeks. So, you guys, if Bowman is sitting there, you need some short-term point guard help. I think Bowman is worth an ad. I've already grabbed him in a couple of my leagues. Not too much else to talk about. Curt, what do you think of the Warriors?
Man, Adrian, the main thing I have, like you said, is Alec Burks. Everyone's picking him up. Everyone's stoked about him. I don't get it. I don't see why. Yeah, he's starting, but to start the day, we did not know who was going to start, and I thought it made sense to start #who is Kai Bowman. He did not get the start, but still had a good line. And Alec Burks, he's been in the league since 2011. Now, let's look at his career numbers. He only has played 21 minutes a game. So, sure, he's going to get more than that if he continues to start. So, maybe bump these numbers up by a little bit. But he's averaged 9.6 points, 3 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 0.6 steals, 0.2 blocks. I am not excited about him in any means. I don't care if he goes out there and scores 20 in the next 3 games. I'm not excited about him. That's one category. And I do not see why the Warriors need to be starting Alec Burks when they have a guy like Kai Bowman, this up-and-coming rookie, coming off the bench. So I was really, really bummed today when I heard that Alec Burks would be starting over him. I picked up Bowman in all kinds of leagues, and he just looks so much better out there. He's got that flashy blonde hair. He's making these cuts to the basket. He's making threes. If you picked up Bowman, I would hold on. I mean, Burks went 2 of 13 from the field in 30 minutes. I really hope Kerr sees what he has here and plays Bowman over Burks, but we'll see. Eric Pascal, man, he doesn't get you to the defensive stats, but 30 and 7 with 2 threes. I'm really kind of bummed on this for my own leagues because in one league he was dropped, and I thought his waiver expires tonight at 11:07 my time, which is Alaska time, or 3:07 Eastern time. I thought maybe I could sneak in and grab this guy. And then he blows up tonight for a line like this, and obviously everyone's going to put a claim in on him. So I'm very upset with you, Eric Pascal. He definitely needs to be owned in all standard leagues. He did this alongside Draymond Green, which everyone's like, he can't coexist with Draymond Green. Guys, if you own Draymond Green, you have to be scared. If you took him in the 3rd or 4th round where he was going in most leagues, you have to be scared. He's the oldest guy on this team that's actually playing. The Warriors are going to be terrible. They're going to rest him more than he needs to be rested when he gets as much as a hangnail. I tell you what, Adrian, correct me if I'm wrong. If Draymond Green goes out there and strings together 2 or 3 good games, if he's somehow able to put together a triple-double, which I don't know if he can because there's nobody to pass to on this team, you have to sell him. I would take a 5th rounder. I would take, I don't even know offhand. I would take a Jonas Valanciunas for him. Some of those other 5th rounders. I would probably take a Hassan Whiteside for him. I don't know, Adrian. What? Am I wrong on this?
No, I agree with you. I would, as soon as Draymond Green strings together a few good games, I would be jumping ship as well. The shutdown, if he has any little minor issue, the Warriors are going to just sit him for weeks. And then at the end of the season, the Warriors just might shut him down anyways. And then on top of all that, he just doesn't – you could see that he's frustrated, not engaged. He's the type of player, he wears his heart on his sleeve. So when he's not happy and he's not feeling good, it shows in his play. So all of those factors, Curt, if you could move Draymond Green for anywhere around – as you said, that range where you were talking about, I am all good with that, man. I'm pretty scared about Draymond Green. I like that take. Curt, what went down on the Pelicans side of this game?
On the Pelicans side, guys, you have to take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. Obviously, Zion is not playing yet. He's getting closer. Brandon Ingram is not playing with a sore right knee. Jahlil Okafor has a sprained left ankle. Frank Jackson has a bruised neck. And Josh Hart has a sprained left knee. So there are things in here that are going to make you want to run to the wire. You need to be careful about doing that. For example, Jackson Hayes started and played 32 minutes with 10 points, 10 rebounds, 1 steal, 3 blocks. Let me also mention that Derek Favors, who is not listed at all on the box score, he did not play tonight. So, again, lots of grains of salt here. Jackson Hayes, as a rookie, I love this guy. If you're able to scoop him up in a dynasty league, congratulations to you. But you're not going to get lines like this every night. But he does look good out there. He looks great. Again, Favors not there, Zion not there. This is more of an aberration. JJ Redick, I dropped him in a couple leagues. I advised multiple people to drop him in a couple leagues. Tonight, he's going to make that hurt a little bit for you as he went for 26 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 triples in 36 minutes. Again, they're missing half their team, so this isn't going to happen all the time. If you have him or you picked him up, I would probably aim to sell high, especially considering the fact that he's 35 years old. This isn't going to happen all the time. Drew Holiday, man, he was touted as a late first rounder, early second rounder. He's been disappointing us so far. And the biggest struggle has been his shots from the field. 9 of 23 today. Not as bad as some of his other games, but 0 of 5 from the three-point line. He did end up with 22 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, a steal, and a block. Better days are in store for Drew. His field goal percentage has to bounce back. If you look at him historically, in the last 5 or 6 years, he always starts this way, kind of like a Nikola Jokic, where his field goal percentage is really bad, and then he brings it back. And I thought, with Zion being out, this guy is going to feast. They talked about him being a potential MVP candidate, which I thought was a little bit of a reach, but still, it let you know that good things were in store for him. Got you a little excited if you took him in the end of the first, early second round. And now I'm thinking, if I own Drew Holiday, I cannot wait for Zion to come back. Let's take some of that defensive pressure off Drew, put it on Zion, let Drew get some easy alley-oop dunks. Like, better days are in store if you own Drew. And it's crazy because we're 11, 12 games in. But, guys, he is still a buy low candidate. He's going to be better than this. Send out whatever you have. I would send out – people are wondering about let's see, FVV, Brogdon. I would probably send either of those guys to get Drew Holiday. Etuan Moore started, but he's been negligible all season. Nothing to see here. Lots of guys missing. Don't read too much into this. Kenrick Williams started for 36 minutes. He was a very popular pickup the last 3 days. 5 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, a block, no threes. He's a decent low-end guy, but again, it's very hard to take too much away from this box score because the Pelicans are missing so many pieces. Nikola Melli, wow, did he ever get exposed on defense? Anybody and everyone, I think even the assistant coach drove to the basket and dunked on Nikola Melli tonight. I heard somebody say that it set back U.S. and Italian relations 5 years by how much Nikola Melli was getting dunked on. So, yeah, he's not there on the defensive end. But he still got you 16 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 5 threes. You could probably make a case for him in a 14-teamer, maybe 16-teamer. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. This guy is more interesting to me than anyone on this team, at least of guys that are available. 35 minutes. 7 of 18 from the field, not great. 5 of 13 from three-point land. Okay. 19 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal. This guy looked amazing in preseason, and I was super stoked. I grabbed this guy with my last round draft pick everywhere, but he just didn't have room in the rotation with guys like Brandon Ingram going nuts, Josh Hart. Now, gosh, I don't think he's worth an ad in most standard leagues, but I'm so intrigued. Adrian, I'm sure you've probably been in this situation where you feel like you're first to the punch with a certain guy, and you just know this guy has potential. So you pick him up everywhere, even though he's not really standard league relevant or relevant for the league that you're in. You just pick him up anyway, and you just want to be that guy who's like, oh, I knew he was going to be good. And then it's really hard to drop him and see him blow up on somebody else's roster, but I feel like he's doing that right now. And as much as I love his game, he looks so good out there, I don't think he's a standard league guy with all these pieces missing, and he'll probably fall out of the rotation for a while. However, if you have room to just stash, I think he is a guy come February, March, where you're going to love having this guy on my team. Like, he can ball. Just the opportunity's not going to be there like it was tonight and the last couple nights. Adrian, fix what I screwed up.
You didn't screw up anything, and I, like you, am a big fan of Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I loved this guy coming into the draft. I think he was a steal where the Pelicans got him. I love his career outlook. I love his game. I love what he did here tonight. The 19 points in the full line. Had another good game earlier in the week. What I don't love is how loaded the Pelicans are at guard. Now, saw 35 minutes tonight, no Lonzo Ball, no Frank Jackson, no Josh Hart. So as long as these guys are out, I'm all good with rolling with Alexander Walker. But once these guys come back, I think we're going to see Alexander Walker fall back into what he was doing before, and which I just don't think is standard league relevant. Now, in dynasty leagues, I got him in a couple spots, and I am ecstatic. I think in a
Yeah.
couple seasons from now, I think this is going to be a guy that we're drafting as like a mid-round guy, easy, if not better than that. So I do really like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I'm just a little worried about him this year when they are fully healthy. Curt, the guy that I'm kind of interested in, I'm going to take a shot on him in some deep leagues, is Jackson Hayes. You know, I think Okafor is going to miss some more time with an ankle injury. We know Derek Favors is not the consistency of health as well. Favors now dealing with an issue. I think at least in the short term, Hayes can give you exactly what he did here tonight, a low-end double-double with 10 points, 10 rebounds. The defensive stats were there. So I'm in a couple deep leagues where I could use some rebounds and some defensive stats. So I might take a swing at him. My expectations are low. Also, as soon as Favors and Okafor come back, likely Hayes will not even be playable. But in the short term, I think I'm going to gamble on Hayes. Other than that, Curt, I think you mentioned the Drew Holiday buy low window. I thought that thing shut earlier. I think it was Thursday. He had a monster game on Thursday with a 36-point line, 6 steals.
6 steals.
Yeah, 7 assists to go along with 4 boards, 5 threes. I thought that was the end of it. But if it is still possible to buy low on Drew Holiday, and you can, I love your take, man. Go and get him because he's got first round type upside. And if somebody in your league has him and doesn't view him like that, I think that could be a mistake. And I love your take, Curt, when you said when Zion gets back in the preseason, Drew Holiday was playing really well with Zion. So, Drew Holiday could get a boost when Zion returns. So, love your take on Drew. Okay, that's
Yes,
all I
sir.
got, Curt. Let's go to the last final game of the evening. As usual, we're running a little long. Curt and I love to talk, man. And Curt, I think
Me
anytime you
too.
and I
Sure.
get together, it is guaranteed to be a decent length of a show. The Atlanta Hawks and the Los Angeles Lakers last game of the night. Not a surprise to see the Lakers get the victory, 122 to 101. I'm going to look in on the Atlanta side first. Kurt, I was at the Clipper Hawks game just last night, so I got to see the Hawks firsthand. And, you know, they're really missing John Collins. And, wait, who else? Oh, and Kevin Herter. I think it's pretty clear that they're missing those two guys. Not that they're going to be some kind of a juggernaut powerhouse when those guys get back. Just a really young team. They got a lot of growing pains to go through. I'm going to start with Trae Young, who had a nice one in this game.
Yeah.
31 points. Did have 8 turnovers. Luckily where I got him, it's an 8 category league, so I'm not too worried about that. 2 steals, 7 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 threes tonight on 11 of 22 shooting. A perfect 7 of 8 from the line. Hunter is an interesting guy in deep leagues, kind of low usage, up and down, but with all the injuries to the Hawks, if you're in a 14-team deeper league, I'm not mad at you if you picked him up and if you're just streaming him for some low-end value. 11 points, 3 steals, 2 rebounds on 4-9 shooting. Gave you 2 threes tonight, so I love that he can give you some three-pointers. I think that's great. Jabari Parker with 11 points, 4 steals, 1 block. The defensive stats, that's nice to see from him tonight. Not really known to provide you good defensive stats. 1 assist, 8 rebounds, 5 of 16 shooting. So the shooting wasn't super great, not efficient there. Cam Reddish, 13 points, 3 steals, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. Another guy that could be worth streaming with all the injuries to the Hawks. The other thing, too, is I feel like with the Hawks getting blown out as much as they do, they really unleash some of their youngsters in Hunter and Reddish and some of their other youngsters that they got to see a lot of minutes when they get blown out, and it's like halfway through the fourth quarter, all their starters mostly are sitting on the bench. So Let's see. I'm really interested off Jones, who was starting at center, but the usage is so low. In 26 minutes, only took 3 shots for 4 points. But I'm going to keep an eye on him in some deep leagues, but it's not really happening for him. Off the bench, man, not too much to talk about. It's kind of ugly over here, Curt, on the Atlanta Hawks side. Other than Trae Young, it's just not that much. Of course, when John Collins comes back, he's going to be solid. And I still love Kevin Herter's outlook for the rest of the season. Hopefully, he comes back soon. He was just starting to come around finally when he got this shoulder injury. So hopefully, we see Kevin Herter back soon. Curt, what do you think of the Atlanta Hawks?
Gosh, Adrian, you really nailed it. And Trae Young, I love this guy so much. I know you do too.
He's fun.
Because I have him in a couple leagues. You have him in a couple leagues. He's so fun to own. And he had a down night the other night, which is funny because he had 20 points and some odd assists. But he really looks up to LeBron James, which I was hearing before the game. He apparently goes to LeBron James's camps. Wow. So he really wanted to prove himself tonight. He played 39 minutes. Obviously, he's going to be a complete steal, especially if you don't care about turnovers. If you're in an 8-cat league, you don't care about turnovers. If you're in a head-to-head league, you probably still don't care about turnovers because you're shooting anyway. But, man, Jabari Parker, I have to be honest, I was not excited to pick this guy up. And I could have picked him up in so many leagues because I got that Woj bomb saying that John Collins is out 25 games. And I made maybe a dumb move. I picked up Bruno Fernando in a lot of leagues thinking he had a shot. First guy off the bench, but nothing to see here. Only played 13 minutes. I think they have to find a way to play Jabari Parker and John Collins together because other than that, it's just Trae Young. So Jabari Parker has proved that he's worth throwing out there. Why not play Trae Young, Jabari Parker at power forward, John Collins at center, or some kind of mix of that? But that being said, let me talk about Jabari Parker for a second. He is on averages in 9-cat leagues prior to tonight, number 62, so just outside 5th-round value, and number 47 on totals value. That is amazing. You're probably stoked if you picked him up. However, sell him. Call me crazy. You need to sell him because his value is not going to be higher than it is now. He normally gets points and rebounds, but he's been chipping in some steals, some blocks, some threes. You need to sell this guy while he still has relevance. Package him with somebody decent and, I don't know, target somebody who's really underperforming like we talked about. Maybe Nikola Jokic or someone. I don't know. Deep leaguers, you need to keep an eye on Cam Reddish. And for me, even though I don't know if he's a pickup anywhere, gosh, I watched these Hawks the other night. Damian Jones. I was a little unsure on where I had seen him before. Apparently, he played for the Warriors the last 2 years, so he's got 2 championships under his belt, which is pretty crazy for a guy as young as he is. And he only took 3 shots tonight. But this guy looks so good under the rim. And last night, he had 4 blocks. Tonight, he went only for 4 and 4 with 1 block. But this guy looks really, really good to me, Adrian. And I think if you're desperate for blocks, you want to stream some blocks. He averaged like 1.5, close to 2 in college. This guy looks really good. And I was so excited about Bruno Fernando. Damian Jones looks so much better, way better than Alex Len. Do not pick up Alex Len. Guys, we know what he does, and it's pretty much nothing. Adrian, what do you think about this Damian Jones guy?
I love your take on Damian Jones, and I got to see him in person last night, and he just pops off, man, because he's so big and he's so athletic and he's just so active, and Curt, I think that's why I'm so surprised that when I see he played 26 minutes and only had 4 points with 4 rebounds, that's why I'm just watch him every night because I'm expecting him to blow up, kind of in the same vein as Rashawn Holmes and some of these other guys, these other bigs, and I see why you're so intrigued by him because physically, he looks like he should just be a monster stud, big man. So I'm just going to keep watching him. I think I would not be surprised if at some point he puts it together. And, as you said, Len is in front of him. Len is just awful.
He's trash.
He's just, yeah, it's just over with Alex Len. And then also, too, with no John Collins, it's less like they just don't have much options. Curt, I, like you, thought that Bruno Fernando could be the guy when John Collins went down. I, like you, was more excited to take a shot on Fernando
Yeah.
than instead. But just not happening with Fernando, which has also been surprising. And, with such a lack of options on this team, I don't know how guys like Jones and Fernando really aren't thriving. So, you guys, let's just keep an eye on this situation. But in standard leagues, I don't think we need to make any kind of moves. Let's just see if these guys could eventually emerge as a nice option. Curt, what went down on the Lakers side of this game?
With the Lakers, let me hit you, Adrian. So Anthony Davis had 14 points, 1 rebound, kind of strange, 5 assists, 0 steals, and 5 blocks, no threes. I don't know all of the news on this game, but to me, that's suspiciously quiet for AD. 1 rebound. A lot of people say, and I myself was saying this coming into the season, the case with Anthony Davis is if he's healthy, you win your league. And I thought he would do really well alongside LeBron. I thought LeBron kind of took the year off last year, and because he knew they weren't making the playoffs. This year they're shooting for the playoffs. They're 11-2. I thought both of these guys would feast because there's really nobody reliable after them. I don't have any hope in JaVale McGee or Danny Green or KCP or Kuzma. Like these two guys are the Lakers. Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And man, AD has been very, very underwhelming this year. I took Harden over him in a couple of leagues. I took Cat over him in a couple of leagues, and I'm just stoked about it. Like maybe he'll turn it around, but he has been very, very underwhelming. Tell me your take on that in a second, Adrian. LeBron James, he's been surprising to me. 33 points, 12 assists, 7 rebounds, 6 threes, and 100% from the free throw line. Granted, it was just 1 for 1. And he had 0 turnovers from LeBron James. That's amazing. He's apparently playing point guard, and he's getting almost double-digit assists every game. So this guy, even though 35 years old, last time I checked, he was still in the first-round valuation for per game and totals, 8-cat and 9-cat. So great guy to own. I'm definitely a little disappointed if I own Anthony Davis. JaVale McGee, nothing to see here, 15 minutes. Danny Green, we know the story with him. He's going to be up, he's going to be down. He's going to be up, he's going to be down. You have to look at him as a week-long or a month-long valuation. And today was one of his better games for 11 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 3 threes. And he did that in only 24 minutes. So, yeah, he's going to frustrate you. He's one of the streakiest guys in the league, but he's still usually just outside the top 100. So he's probably worth owning, depending on your league depth. He's probably worth owning in almost every league. KCP, 13 points, and not much else. Kyle Kuzma, he came off the bench today. 26 minutes, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block, 3 threes. Kyle Kuzma gets... I've heard some people say that he's the next MVP, which is kind of laughable to me, honestly. But for me, he's really a points and threes kind of dude. But that is really what the Lakers need. Like, yeah, Danny Green starting and getting threes, but they really need Kuzma. They need this guy to succeed. I'm kind of surprised that he doesn't start over KCP unless they really, really want that scoring punch off the bench. So he's going to be mostly scoring in threes, but I think he's worth owning in standard leagues. Dwight Howard, 2 points, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks, 24 minutes. him and JaVale McGee kind of trade back and forth decent games. I think all they're doing, honestly, is canceling each other out. In standard 12-team leagues with a 13-person roster, I don't think either of them is worth owning. Quinn Cook, I kind of was intrigued by him in the early season, thinking maybe he could do something. It's just not there. Rajon Rondo today played 24 minutes for 15 points. Kind of surprised me. 3 assists and a steal, 2 threes. Again, even though this line is serviceable, I'm not racing to pick him up anywhere. Alex Caruso had 11 points and not much else. And really, guys, besides AD, LeBron, and Kuzma, I don't want to own anyone on this Lakers team. Adrian, who do you want to own out of these guys?
The guys that you said, I agree with you. This is one of those teams kind of in the same vein as the Nuggets where they're so deep. Other than their studs, you really don't want to trust their second-tier players because it's possible they just completely disappear. Danny Green can have a great night and then completely disappear in the next night. They're missing Avery Bradley. When he comes back, here's another guy you throw in the mix. Rondo, Caruso. It's just tough. Now, you talked about Anthony Davis at the beginning of this Laker breakdown, and it feels like Anthony Davis has been very underwhelming, but surprisingly, in 9 category leagues, he's player number 3 in total value. So it just really goes to show you how good Anthony Davis is that even without these, we're expecting giant popcorn lines like 30 points with 12 boards and a full line, and even though we haven't seen a lot of that from Anthony Davis, just really goes to show you how good he is. Curt, I took in that Hoop Ball Staff League, I had the number 1 overall pick. It was actually a really difficult decision this year having the number 1 pick. I went Anthony Davis. Now, I do slightly regret that because James Harden has been such a monster, and another there's quite a few guys who you could put in that mix. But, if you have Anthony Davis, just hang tight, of course. I think he's going to finish the year easy, a top 3 guy. As we said, not even doesn't feel like playing that great. And right now he's a top 3 guy. So hang tight with Anthony Davis. Curt, I think that's it. Any closing thoughts on this game or any of the other games tonight?
All I have, Adrian, is to stir the pot a little bit. AD, who most of us say if he's healthy, you win your league. If you had AD right now, who would you easily trade for and accept for him? Because for me, if I had AD and you offered me Towns, easy accept. If you offered me Harden, easy accept. And if you offered me Giannis, which I would not have said this in the preseason, I think he's an easy accept too. What would you do?
I love all those guys you mentioned. I would have no problem. And let me throw one more guy that you didn't mention. Let's say you have Anthony Davis, and let's say you drafted a bunch of other centers who were just going off and going crazy. And let's say you're really short at point guard. Damian Lillard right now is the number 2 player in fantasy, and that doesn't look like a fluke. I mean, he could easily, this is a guy we were just drafting right outside of those top 5 guys. So we expected Damian Lillard to be a first round guy. I would have no problem if you wanted to move him for him as well. But I think other than that, that's about it. Those are the guys. And, as I would have no problem moving Anthony Davis. But if you have Anthony Davis and you do want to stick with him, I still think his outlook for rest of the season will be okay. Now, one of the things you could slightly worry about, the Lakers are I think 11-2 or something like that, and the best record in the NBA. If they just keep rolling along here, we could definitely see some shutdown risk towards the end of the season. Yeah. So another reason why, if you want to sell high on Anthony Davis, I definitely don't got a problem with that. Curt, another big evening, only 6-game slate. We're recording over an hour and 30 minutes right now. So
are you serious?
I'm not joking, man. When you and I get together, it is guaranteed to be a long show. We just both love to talk, but hey, there's nothing wrong with that. This is a podcast for the
It's
fantasy
fun.
listeners. We're supposed to be talking. So,
Yeah.
Curt, any closing thoughts before we wrap a bow on this? Where can the listeners find you at?
Absolutely. Adrian, again, thank you for sitting in with me and listening to all my rants. Listeners, we love having you guys. It's been amazing. You're the reason we do this. Reach out to us on Twitter, on the Hoopball forums. You can reach me at Captain Canegas, CaptCainegis. It's probably also in the description for the video. Again, we just love having you guys. You are the reason we do this. Thank you for being here with us. And Adrian, it's so fun talking to you, man. I feel like we could talk for hours. Like, considering this was a small slate, only 6 games, and we still talked for an hour and a half, man, it's been so much fun. If you guys like listening to us, we're here every Sunday. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on the forums. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. What are we missing that you guys would like to hear us talk about?
All right, you guys,
Adrian.
we are getting out of here. As Curt said, thank you guys so much. Curt, I want to say ditto, man. I really, truly, greatly enjoy talking to you every Sunday. I look forward to it, man. It's just a great way to start the upcoming week, and I'm just a little worried, man. On our next 12 game slate, man, that could be a long show. So we're gonna have to figure out
about 4 hours.
on those long slate games, we might have to find a way to cut it down. But hey, thank you guys so much. We love doing the show for you guys, so thank you guys. All right, we will talk to you next week.
Have a good one.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.